Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahamsa, Paravajakacharya, Ashtottara Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parajagacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 9th day of November 2021 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 17, the Divisions of Faith, text number 17 on page 652, most of your books. Shraddhaya Paraya Taptam tapas, tat, trividham, narai, apalakanshibhir, yuktai, satvikam, parichakshate. You have a different pagination, maybe. Yeah, there's one book is different. Yeah, you can always tell by the margins. The margins are thinner. Okay. Shadhaya paraya taptam, tapastat tribidhang narai, apalakangshibi yuktai, satvikam parichakshate. Shadhaya paraya taptam, tapastat tribidhang narai, apalakangshibi yuktai, satvikam parichakshate. Shadhaya paraya taptam, tapastat tribidhang narai, apalakangshibi yuktai, satvikam parichakshate. Go down. Shadhaya paraya taptam, tapastat trivadhang narai, apalakangshibi yuktai, satvikam parichakshate. Dimitri. Shadhaya paraya taptam, tapastat trivadhang narai, apalakangshibi yuktai, prakam parichakshate. Shukri. Shadhaya paraya taptam, tapastat trivadhang narai, apalakangshibi yuktai, satvikam parichakshate. Rabbi 2. Shadhaya paraya taptam, tapastat trivadhang narai, apalakangshibi yuktai, satvikam parichakshate. Shadhaya paraya taptam, tapastat trivadhang narai, apalakangshibi yuktai, satvikam parichakshate. Any other ladies want to try? Shadhaya paraya taptam, tapastat trivadhang narai, apalakangshibi yuktai, satvikam parichakshate. Zoomland.
Shradhaya paraya taptam,
Shadhaya paraya taptam,
tapastat trividam narai,
tapastat trivadhang narai,
apalakangshibi yuktai,
apalakangshibi yuktai,
satvikam parichakshate.
satvikam parichakshate. Anyone else?
Shadhaya paraya taptam,
Shadhaya paraya taptam,
tapastat trividham narai,
tapastat trivadhang narai,
apalakangshibi yuktai,
apalakangshibi yuktai,
satvikam parichakshate.
satvikam parichakshate. Shadhaya with faith. No, that's all right. Shadhaya with faith, paraya transcendental, taptam executed, taptaha austerity. Tat that trivadham of three kinds, narai by men, or human beings, apala akangshibi who are without desires for fruits, yuktai engaged, satvikam in the mode of goodness, parichakshate is called. Translation. This threefold austerity performed with transcendental faith by men not expecting material benefits but engaged only for the sake of the Supreme is called austerity in goodness. Men means human beings. well, he says this threefold austerity, so I'm going to read the translation to 13, 14, and 15, describing the austerities. No. Yeah, it's austerities in the mode of goodness. 14, 15, and 16. Austerity of the body consists in worship of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmins, the spiritual master, and superiors like the father and mother, and in cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and non-violence. Austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others, and also in regularly reciting the Vedic literature. And satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence are the austerities of the mind. And so that was the verse that we chanted, the threefold austerity of in goodness. And since there's no purport, we'll continue with text 18. Satkaramana pujatam tapodambhena chayavayat kriyate tadiha proktam radasam chalamadruvam. Penance performed out of pride and for the sake of gaining respect, honor, and worship is said to be in the mode of passion. It is neither stable nor permanent. One note on Prabhupada's use of the vocabulary, the word penance he has as a synonym for austerity. In Western circles, and you look at the dictionary, penance is austerity engaged in for the sake of ridding one from sins. There's the repentance aspect of it. But austerity can be engaged in for other purposes also. So that's a synonym here. Purport. Sometimes penance and austerity are executed to attract people and receive honor, respect, and worship from others. Persons in the mode of passion arrange to be worshipped by subordinates and let them wash their feet and offer riches. Such arrangements artificially made by the performance of penances are considered to be in the mode of passion. The results are temporary. They can be continued for some time, but they are not permanent. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. Do you want a book? It's coming? Okay. They're getting him one. Okay, so just an overall view of this chapter. What Krishna is describing here are various activities and things like food that we eat, all in terms of the different modes of nature. Now, this is not obvious conception or well-known conception in the West, but we're completely familiar with it when you just think about it. For instance, foods. I think we already did foods, right? There are certain foods that build one's health, that are what we call sattvic. They're not highly spiced and agitate the senses. And as Krishna described, healthy and nourishing. He says fatty, they have a balance of carbohydrates and everything. So these are foods in the mode of goodness. And of course, Hare Krishnas are especially known for their food, which we call prasadam. This is a transcendental mode. This is not just in the mode of goodness, but it's in the mode of goodness, but beyond that. And prasadam means food that's cooked according to Krishna's directions, which he gives in the 9th chapter in kind of a sutra form, where he says, Patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhaktya priyachati tadaham bhakti patitam ashnami prayatatmana. The word ashnami means eat. I eat. And he says, when someone offers to me foods that are composed of these general 4 categories, patram, pushpam, palam, toyam. Patram means a leaf. So wheat and things, all these, certainly all kind of salad greens, things like that. Vegetables. Pushpam, flowers. I guess the flower would be the wheat kernels and things like that, or the seeds. And palam is fruits, all different kinds of fruits. And toyam, that includes all kinds of liquids, not just water. It means water, but also milk especially. So the general ingredients that we use to make Krishna prasadam, totally vegetarian, but it's definitely lacto-vegetarian. But it's prepared. The key element is not the leaf or the fruit, etc., but actually the bhakti, the devotion with which it's prepared. We're not, in Krishna consciousness, we're trying to make everything that we do into an offering to Krishna. And especially in this case, when we eat, we have to eat. Well, how to make eating into a spiritual activity? Because eating can also bind you, and you can commit tremendous sinful activities and suffer tremendously. So the first thing is no meat eating, especially no cow eating. It's not necessary, and it's very cruel. It causes global warming. There's about 100 different reasons why you shouldn't eat the cow, and that's not part of the list. So vegetarian food performed, and as Srila Prabhupada gave us so much wonderful recipes, introduced all these different milk sweets no one had heard of before. So it becomes a sacrament. Cooking becomes a sacrament, the offering is a sacrament, even the partaking of the prasadam is you're conscious, oh, this is remnants that Krishna ate. Now, the one question is, well, yeah, I know, you say he eats it, but it's still there. We have to clear the plates every day. How does he eat? He can eat by just looking. There's a verse in the Brahma Samhita, the famous verse, Angani yasa sakalendriya vritti manti, that with any of his senses, Krishna can perform, because he's the Supreme God. He can perform the functions of all the other senses. So by looking at it with his transcendental vision, he can see the bhakti is prepared with, he can see how it's been offered nicely, And sometimes he actually does eat. In other words, it disappears. There's special occasions when the food isn't there anymore. That's another thing. So eating can be made into an act of sacrifice and an act of loving exchange with Krishna. So this is austerity describing foods. Now there's also foods in the mode of passion. He describes them highly spiced and simply eaten for one's sense gratification, and there's no question of offering, and there's no really restriction of ingredients, and that's just for one's own pleasure, and that binds one to this world. Then you're going to come back again, especially if you eat meat and things like that. And then there's foods in the mode of ignorance, old and half decomposed food, food that is intoxicating. They all liquors, you can consume them. That would certainly be in the mode of ignorance. So this is what he's talking about. So in this chapter, now he's talking about the different divisions of austerity, and that begins back in text 14, which I read the translation to, 14, 15, 16. All of those are austerities in the mode of goodness. And austerities in the mode of goodness are part of a whole lifestyle which serve as a basis for practicing God consciousness, or Krishna consciousness, bhakti yoga. Cleanliness. Right, there's a whole practice of keeping the temple clean, and we bathe every day, more than once a day, and certainly keeping the grounds clean, everything clean, clothes certainly, because not keeping clean is a result of the mode of ignorance, and it fosters the mode of ignorance, and the mode of ignorance is very dangerous. Because the result of being in the mode of ignorance, as we learned back in chapter 14, is one becomes very lazy and crazy and does things very damaging to himself and to others. And we see that mode of passion and ignorance is very prominent today in the world we live in. That passion means you're doing things to get money so you can enjoy more, you can control, power, all of these things. That's the mode of passion. And the mode of ignorance is just, as I say, madness, violence, destruction, self-destruction. It's very dangerous. Krishna describes the symptoms. So in this chapter, he's describing different activities and different qualities and things that are in different modes, all on the basis of Arjun's original question in text 1. Because what we're reading here is called Shastra. Now, in Sanskrit, every word is significant. It has a root meaning. And the word Shastra comes from the word shas, the root shas. It has a little syllable, which means to be control. Just like we have the word shastra, and then we have the word shastra. Very similar, but there's one difference in that A. Shastra means a weapon, and shastra means a book that you agree to obey as a guide for your life. Pramana. We have that anyway, but we don't know, we pick a little from here, a little from there, a little from our own mind, from our friend, from the internet, all kinds of things. And this is what we believe, and this is how we lead our life. But real Shastra is directly spoken by God, say Krishna, as we have here, which is also valuable, or by his representatives, written by or expansions like that. In other words, divinely inspired. And so, at the end of the 16th chapter, Krishna has a very important verse we can turn to. You have books on page 637. Tasmat shastra pramanam te karya karya vavastito gyatva shastra badanoktam karma karta miharasi. So in this chapter 16, after listing many divine qualities at the beginning, he then describes the rest of the chapter, most of it, the qualities of those who are demonic, those who are anti-God, and who suffered greatly. And so how can we avoid falling into that category? Basically by following the Shastra. Tasmat Shastra Pramanam Te. The word pramana means evidence. One should therefore understand what is duty and what is not duty by the regulations of the scriptures. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that it may be elevated. So this is for our own good. Shastra. But the previous verse said, one who disregards the Shastra and acts simply on his own whims, then that such a person cannot attain perfection, nor happiness, nor the supreme goal. So we have to know, what is that perfection? What is real happiness? Happiness is not what we normally take it to be, which is what we basically say sustained pleasure. But pleasure that's based on this body or mind is inherently temporary. And we already have experience of that. Whether it's some kid getting his presents on Christmas Day, being in bliss. I remember I didn't get Christmas presents because I belonged to a Jewish family when I grew up. But my friend was Christian, so I would go over there every Christmas morning, play with his toys, Get that out of my system, I didn't break them, but clearly, it's temporary. You grow out of them, like the kids grow out of them, and even if you're an adult, it's temporary. It comes and it goes. So real happiness is sustained. It doesn't end. Brahma Saukyam is called spiritual happiness. And we actually have that ability to enjoy that because we're spirit. But we're in a kind of an incompatible situation because our body is certainly made of matter. But we also have a spiritual body that's now covered. And this bhakti yoga is meant to uncover that spiritual body. And the result is that when you die, and let's face it, we're all going to leave the body eventually, no one actually dies. Forget about it. No one dies. I made a little song. Every body dies. Space, every body dies. Every body dies, nobody dies. Wake up, and open your eyes. You're not that body, you're pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. And the preliminary definition of that life's goal is don't come back. Don't take another body. You don't have to take another body. If you're purified of all desires to enjoy material happiness, and you've eradicated all your karma. Now your karma, you can't eradicate it, but Krishna can. And the process of bhakti destroys lifetimes worth of karma. You're not even aware of what's going on, but it's liberating. And if you become pure, then you don't have to come back. So the 17th chapter is set up by the 16th chapter, and Arjuna asked the question, Yakshastra Vidamutsurja. He used the same word. One who disregards Shastra and acts, what is the nature of his faith? Because we act on the basis of faith. You have faith that if you get your paycheck, and you have your credit card, it will be accepted at Ralph's and it will be accepted at, so forth. It won't be kicked back because there's money in the bank, right? So you basically have a faith in the system, but here, if your faith is not in the Shastra, then it'll be in something else, and it'll be in the different modes of nature. And on the basis of that faith, you'll act, and you'll be said to be predominantly controlled by a certain mode of nature. And that being in the modes, whether it's goodness, passion, or ignorance, or a combination of one or two of the three, is going to bring us back again. So to another body, which we don't want. Because then it's another round of old age, disease, and death, which is the basic principle of Vedic culture, is how can we get out of that? The Buddhists also, they're an offshoot, but they also want nirvana, no more birth, body, right? So here Krishna is describing the different kinds of faith and the different kinds of activities and objects and things such as food that are in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance, so that we can choose wisely those elements that are in the mode of goodness and mold our life around that. Okay, so we have read about this austerity in the mode of passion, and then we're going to read about austerity in the mode of ignorance. I don't know if we read that yet. Yeah, we didn't read 19 yet. Any questions on this little purport of what I've said so far? The divisions of faith and the modes of nature. Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol. I was worrying. Yes, Vijay. He's in Portugal, by the way. He's in Portugal. Every night he attends a class through Zoom. We have people all over the world. Go ahead, Prabhu.
Yes, thank you very much, Dravida Prabhu. The text number 17 establishes that the threefold austerity should be performed for the sake of the Supreme.
Right.
So my question is, why is it that I should do it for the sake of the Supreme when it is well known that the Supreme is already supremely strong, beautiful, rich, famous, knowledgeable, and detached? The one who is in a miserable situation, it is me. So, could you elaborate on this, please?
Yeah, this is one of the I don't know how to say paradoxes, but kind of not oxymoron, but koan type realities of Krishna consciousness, and that is that the whole principle of bhakti centers on the idea that our suffering is caused by our separation from God in many ways. And it manifests most obviously in our forgetfulness. We don't think about Him, and we just oftentimes we don't even think thinking exists. It's just a construct, whatever. So the Bhakti Yoga begins with at least a preliminary faith that God exists and that it's important to know Him, and that we'll be benefited by that. Now, what's the benefit? As I mentioned before, the preliminary benefit will be that you'll get rid of all of the miseries attendant with this body. We don't have to. Anyone who lives in this world for a little while, even as you get to be a child, you realize, there are ups and downs. There's things that make you very angry or mad or sad. You cry and everything. It's not all a bed of roses. Well, okay, that's life. But Krishna consciousness says, no, that's material life, but that's not real life. That's not your ultimate life. There's another world. There's another way of existence based on our spiritual foundation, which we are. That never changes. So when it's said here, the threefold austerity performed with transcendental faith by men, human beings not expecting material benefit, engaged only for the sake of the Supreme, is called austerity and goodness. So this is the idea is that we are part and parcel of Krishna. A very important concept. Meaning that we are inseparable. We're really dependent for our existence and our nature on the Supreme. And we share so many of His qualities. In other words, there's a oneness there. There's this wonderful reconciliation of all these different philosophies that Lord Chaitanya performed. He's an avatar of Krishna. We call him, I'd say, an avatar for the sake of simplicity. And he reconciled different branches of bhakti. I won't get into that through this phrase, and it's worth meditating on for a little bit. Achintya bheda bheda tattva. The truth that everything in existence, including ourselves, are inconceivably, simultaneously, one with and different from God. So there are various analogies to help us understand. Most obvious is the sun. There's the sun, and then there's the sun rays. Well, the sun rays transmit the light and the heat of the sun, right? So the sun rays each sun ray has an infinitesimal, but still, existing element of heat and light, just as the sun. The sun has practically infinite heat and light. But the sun rays have a little bit of it. So they're simultaneously different from, certainly, the sun, but they're also an element of oneness there, the quality. Another one here is perfect. We're near the ocean. A drop of ocean water is salty. It has a little chemicals in there the ocean has, but it's infinitely different in size. So we are infinitesimal. We're very minute, but we're indestructible. Particles of spirit, of consciousness, like that. And Krishna is supreme consciousness, all-pervading. He's in every atom. He's in every heart. And his power is practically infinite. Ours is completely finite, no doubt about it. But we have personality. Because we have personality, we should understand that the Supreme must have personality. Otherwise, where did we get it from? Does the sun ray have something that the sun doesn't have? No. Does the little drop of water have, seawater have something that the Pacific Ocean doesn't have? No. So that oneness and difference. Now, bringing it back to the point, we're acting for the sake of the Supreme. The fact of the matter is that when we act for the sake of the Supreme, for Krishna, when we do something wholly and solely to please Him, that's our motive. We find that we're pleased because we're part and parcel of God. Really? You become satisfied. Prabhupada would compare. Have you ever seen the deities? I don't know if you've ever seen. But we're going to open the curtains. If you stay after 8:15, there'll be a little song of kirtan, and you'll see the beautiful forms of the Lord dressed very nicely, And so those who are pujaris, they find it fully satisfying. In dressing the Lord beautifully. We just had a big holiday of ours, is they celebrating Krishna's pastime of lifting a hill and protecting his friends and cows. And Krishna was dressed so beautifully, all flowers, a complete flower outfit. Yeah, dressed very stunning. So all of us were very pleased to see that outfit, right? We didn't think, hey, I'm sitting here with these, $10 in his suit, and Krishna's dressed that way. There's none of that. And I said, oh, it's so wonderful. The Lord is just, isn't it? So the flowers were bought and decorations were made for the sake of Krishna, but we share in that pleasure. In other words, the fact that we offered it to Him and glorified, chanting Hare Krishna, there's a pleasure there. That's transcendental pleasure. It doesn't depend on, how powerful you are, how rich you are, how beautiful you are. It just depends on your consciousness, and you're acting on the basis of pure consciousness. So therefore, the threefold austerity and the mode of goodness, when engaged in, say, offering respect to the elders, that was the first one, part of the body, austerities of the body, respect to respectable persons, then that's a great pleasure to do that. We just had another holiday honoring Srila Prabhupada, celebrating the day he left this world. And devotees, I got online. There's so many wonderful remembrances, from the Prabhupada's memories and all these different things. And devotees who are trying to dedicate their lives to service to Srila Prabhupada, it's all very delightful and pleasing. It's not. I'm not being glorified. But I'm really relishing Prabhupada being glorified. This is real love. Just like we have the mother and child. Here's a good example. The mother does so many things for the sake of the child, right? Keeping him warm and healthy and well-fed and loved, And when the child is sleeping, or he looks up at the mother and smiles with a toothless little smile, the mother is in ecstasy. And she's fulfilled. She did. What'd she get out of that? This is the selfless love that's the best example in material life. Mother and child, Prabhupada said. But the child grows up, the relationship changes. You can't stay under it, right? You know that. Any mother knows that. I like to tell the story. My 90-year-old mother, when I would visit her, this was years ago when I lived in Miami, I would fly up to New York. In those days, they had $67 round-trip flights, believe it or not. And so I go up there and visit. And she would, want to feed me, like she did when I was 15, 14, 10, 5, And I said, well, I make some potatoes, I'll offer them, like that. But that was her pleasure. If she saw that I was healthy and happy and she could feed me, she was happy, It's a motherly thing. It's a purest type of love, selfless love. And so that is what we all have for Krishna, but it's been misdirected to things of this world, and even a lot of it to this very body, And it's always frustrating. But when the love is directed to Krishna, we're able to express it through the means of bhakti yoga, glorification, sound, and so many other ways, then it's pleasing. So it's paradoxical. When we do things for the sake of Krishna, that's when we truly do things for the sake of ourselves. When we do everything for the sake of ourselves, meaning this body and thing, then we're working against our own self-interest. Because we're ensuring another birth in this world, full of birth, old age, disease, and death, and threefold miseries, So we're acting against our own self-interest. So understanding what the self is, and therefore what our real self-interest is paramount, is a basis of our Krishna consciousness. And when we have faith in that, this is what this chapter is about. We have faith in that which we can't see. We can't see the soul, even we can't see Krishna directly. But we have faith in the words of the Shastra and in those who live and teach the Shastra, the Acharyas, like Srila Prabhupada. Then we can begin to experience it ourselves when we become purified. So that's the answer to the question. Kind of a long answer, but it's a good question. Thank you.
Dravida Prabhu, a long question, but again, if I may say it, a monumental answer to my question. Thank you very much, Prabhu. You're amazing.
Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. That doesn't mean we're ending yet. We're not ready to. Hare Prabhu. Okay, we'll move on to text 19. But wait, before we go to 19, I just wanted to point out, again we hit the word damba here. You keep hitting that word damba, and Prabhupada gives us pride. False pride, hypocrisy. When you perform your austerity very ostentatiously, everyone should know that I've fasted for 3 days, and don't forget it, That's damba. That's out of pride, performing austerities with the idea that to get some worship. Okay, mode of ignorance. Mudha grahen atmano yat pidaya kriyate tapaha parasyotsyadanhartamba tattam samudaritam. Penance performed out of foolishness, with self-torture, or to destroy or injure others, is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Purport. There are instances of foolish penance undertaken by demons like Hiranyakashipu, who performed austere penances to become immortal and kill the demigods. He prayed to Brahma for such things, but ultimately he was killed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of Lord Nrsimhadev. To undergo penances for something which is impossible is certainly in the mode of ignorance. So this is, when I read this, I often think of the Olympics. Olympics can also involve a lot of austerity, especially these young girls with the what do they call it, gymnastics. There've been scandals how they would force these girls to work and hard, natural, and all so that the United States can be champions. So it doesn't have to, but athletics can often go into this kind of thing. Self-torture, destroy or injure others. I mean, I hope I'm not offending anybody, but the game of football, as it's developed in America, I mean, of course, you want to win, right? So you're in college, you take steroids, so you'll get unnaturally large and strong, and they've got guys on the line who are 300 pounds and they move very fast and they can hurt you, and then that's poor, the brains. I remember when I came here, he was very famous in San Diego. This is 30 years ago. One linebacker who was very fast, and he would tackle the. But what happens is the brain, that it's unnatural and it's dangerous and injurious to have those huge collisions with heavy. And they have what is called chronic encephalopathy. I forget what it's called. A chronic disease of the brain, where you can't control your emotions and you get angry easily, and so much so. And he wasn't alone in this, where he committed suicide. This guy in his 40s after he retired. That's austerity in the mode of ignorance, torturing oneself for some honor or something like that. So we don't want to do that. All right, let's move on. Now, charity. These are the three different modes. Datavyam yaddanam diyate nupakarine deshe kale cha patre cha taddanam satvikam smritam. Charity given out of duty, without expectation of return, at the proper time and place, and to a worthy person, is considered to be in the mode of goodness. Purport. In the Vedic literature, charity given to a person engaged in spiritual activities is recommended. There is no recommendation for giving charity indiscriminately. Spiritual perfection is always a consideration. Therefore, charity is recommended to be given at a place of pilgrimage and at lunar or solar eclipses, or at the end of the month, or to a qualified Brahmin or a Vaishnava, a devotee, or in temples. Such charities should be given without any consideration of return. Charity to the poor is sometimes given out of compassion, but if a poor man is not worth giving charity to, then there is no spiritual advancement. In other words, indiscriminate charity is not recommended in the Vedic literature. So, charity, this is where dana. In the next chapter, Krishna will describe how dana, yajna, and tapa should never be given up. We're talking about tapasya in the previous verses. So, yajna is sacrifice, dana is, of course, charity, and tapa is austerity. So these are, he says, these purify even the great sages. So they're also integrated into the practice of bhakti yoga. Certainly there's so many austerities, there's no question of that. But as far as dana goes, of course, many times householders, and they'll have some disposable income, and if they give something in the box here, this is called the hundi, where you can donate, or some other way, then they're confident that's going to go to the service of the Lord. So that means that whatever work they did to produce that Lakshmi or money becomes devotional service, and it's like people in Wall Street, they want to invest a little bit, which will then expand and you'll get more, right? So just a little bit of devotional service, practically anything you do is just invaluable. Krishna says right at the beginning in the second chapter, Neha kripamanashosti, Neha bhikramanashosti, pratyavayo navidyate, svopamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bayat. This has always been very encouraging. I mean, I remember when I first read this, well, this is encouraging. It means, what he says there is, in this endeavor of Krishna consciousness, bhakti yoga, there's no loss or diminution. Just think about that for a minute. Anything you do materially, there's loss, there's diminution. Whatever you accumulate, whatever honor you get, whatever money you make, whatever beauty you have in this world, is taken away no later than the time of death. It may become, whatever beauty you have is usually taken over before. But the point is that you can't hold on to anything because it's attached to the body, and the body is coming to dust, So, but any advance you make in Krishna consciousness, that's the soul. The soul doesn't end with the body. The soul is eternal. So that's to your eternal credit. Even if you just attend one Bhagavad Gita class, what to speak of more, that is in your spiritual bank account. It will not be taken away And you'll have to come back again in the next life and attain and check up another Bhagavad Gita class. And you have to have a human body for that. That's the second half of the verse. Even a little advancement on the path, opam, protects you from the most fearful type of danger. What's the most fearful type of danger? To lose the precious human form of life. You don't die, but you can go down into a cat and dog body or even lower than that. And then they don't have any karma. They're not responsible because they don't have the intelligence. They're just acting according to instinct. But you have to be in that body, then you come up, finally come to human form of life. So now we all have this human form of life. Don't waste it. There's a beautiful verse Prabhupada would always quote. Labdva sudurlamabidam bahusam bhavante manushyamatatamanityamapi adhira. Turnam yatet anapated anamritya yavad nikshayasaya vishaya karusarvatakshyat. So the first part of the verse says, human being, you have attained this human form after passing through so many lower species. Bahusambhavante, many births. Manushyam, or what's so special about human form? Artadam. It can give the real goal of life, namely getting out of this material world of birth and death and going back home, back to God, at where we started, the kingdom of God. There's no birth, no death. There's just Satchit Ananda life, eternal life full of bliss and knowledge with Krishna. So, but like all forms, it's temporary. The clock is ticking. Don't waste any time. That's the thing, you have to endeavor. So one has to be dhira. Very nice word. It appears near the beginning of Krishna's teachings in Bhagavad Gita. Dhira means sober-minded, means very thoughtful about the meaning of life. Not just working always on the senses and being wrapped up in the modes of nature. So if you're dhira, then you can do what he describes in the second half of the verse. Turnam yateta. Turna means immediately. Don't waste any time. Yateta, strive. For what? He says strive as long as you still have your body, as long as you have your faculties. In other words, you may live a long life, but you gradually lose your intelligence and so forth. So when you have everything together, anumritya yavat, because death is following behind you, anumritya yavat. Nikshayasaya, strive for the ultimate good. The ultimate good is, once again, breaking free from the bonds of birth and death and returning to the blissful world of Goloka Vrindavan, Krishna Loka. Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha means the place where there's no anxiety. Krishna Loka is the supreme Vaikuntha planet, where Krishna is there engaging in his wonderful Leela, and we have a place there in those pastimes. Or Chaitanya is there also. There's a corner there where there's the kirtan. We can do kirtan forever. Nobody sings out of tune there. Everyone's playing the drum right in time. So Nikshaya Vishaya, because after all, in all these other forms we've come up with, we've experienced all varieties of sense gratification. Look where it got us. We're still bound by birth and death. So don't waste your time with that. So that's this is just the opposite we didn't read here. Mudha, Grahina, and charity. So charity means in Krishna consciousness giving the fruits of your labor to Krishna. And the more that you have attachments in this world, the more that those attachments will bind you to come back. We want to take the attachments to the things of this world, take those very things, give them to Krishna, and become attached to Krishna. That's the whole point. If you have $1 million and you build a temple for Krishna, then you're attached to Krishna, and all the people who come and worship there, that's to your credit. A very wonderful thing. But if you have $1 million, and you buy a yacht, that's you become a fish next. Why waste your time? All right, it's getting a little late. But we have these short purpose. So I'll read one more. Okay, so that was Dana in the mode of goodness. We read 20, right? Yeah, 21. Yattu pratyupakaratam palam uddishya vapunaha diyate chaparikristam taddanam rajasam smritam But charity performed with the expectation of some return, or with a desire for fruitive results, or in a grudging mood, is said to be charity in the mode of passion. Purport. Charity is sometimes performed for elevation to the heavenly kingdom, and sometimes with great trouble and with repentance afterwards. Why have I spent so much in this way? Charity is also sometimes given under some obligation at the request of a superior. These kinds of charity are said to be given in the mode of passion. There are many charitable foundations which offer their gifts to institutions where sense gratification goes on. Such charities are not recommended in the Vedic scripture. Only charity in the mode of goodness is recommended. So you may not know this, but a lot of the public libraries that exist around America, we have one down the street here. I think I'm correct in this. I think it was Carnegie. He was one of these big barons in the early part of the 20th century. I think he was the railroads. But, they made, in those days, a millionaire was big. Maybe he had $100 million, which is $10 billion today. And so it was the oil guy. Anyway, but somebody started writing about him and pointing out what a Scrooge he was, how selfish he was and everything. So he decided to counteract that bad image. He would give all this money for the public library system. He was the one who funded it before it came. And so that's in the mode of passion. In other words, I'm going to give this. Oftentimes they'll donate for a building in the university it went to, and that it's understood that the person's name is supposed to be on there. This is the Mr. Smith, chemistry building, so his name will be on it. So that's in the mode of passion. You want something out of it. You want to be known as a charitable person. Isn't there something in the Bible? Give charity, but anonymously, right? Yeah. But the idea is that if it's anonymous, then the motive was to help the person that you want, and especially if that charity is given to Krishna. Then just see the benefit. This temple can be maintained. For instance, nicely, so people can come and hear Bhagavad Gita and get a chant and begin the process of making their lives perfect. So the charity is multiplied 100 times for the best possible purpose. So any little service or charity you can give for Krishna consciousness is to your eternal benefit. It's definitely counted on the side of bhakti. And you come back again, hear another Bhagavad Gita class in your next life. Any final comments or questions? Please. About 20, sure.
The importance of the intention behind the charity, but I was wondering about the to a worthy person
yes.
part, like determining a worthy person.
Who is that worthy? How do you know who's worthy?
Yeah.
Well, let's see. What does it say? Patre. I think patre is the person. Yeah, suitable person. Well, the idea is that if you give the charity to somebody who himself is doing good for others, then you can see that your charity is really going to be multiplied in that way. If it's just someone, if you give to a poor person who needs something to eat, that's okay. That's not bad, but it's not the highest form of charity, which has a multiplier effect. And if you give to an institution like Krishna Consciousness Society, then it has a tremendous multiplier effect, because it can, say, as I mentioned, it can help support a temple like this, so that others can learn about Krishna consciousness, and in turn give Krishna consciousness to others, which is the most valuable thing, because it can liberate you from the material world entirely. It's like the old adage, they have it. You can give someone food, or you can show them how to farm, so that he can then earn something, and like that. So that's kind of on a simple analogy of it. But Krishna consciousness is the greatest charity itself, because it's giving the most valuable thing. And Lord Chaitanya, he was the most munificent charitable incarnation, because he gave the greatest gift, love of God, freely to everyone. Take this chanting and chant and, learn this process. And even if you don't succeed in this lifetime, because there's a lot of impurities we have to get rid of, then no loss or diminution, And millions and millions of lifetimes we spent here in this human life and previous life. So what's a couple of more lifetimes? We should try to get out this lifetime, but still, if we get on our way, then we're doing nicely. So anything we can do to help that is the best kind of charity. That's the idea. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bo.